Hello, Di here from Timestep Softworks. Welcome to the 17th development video for Vigilantes, in which I'll cover the new features and content which have been added in Alpha 6. The single largest feature which has been added in this update is tactical repositioning, and this will allow you to reposition your party members before combat starts. You can see here we currently have a 60% chance of repositioning, so I'm just going to attempt that. Now, to explain how that works, the character in your party with the highest bypass skill has a skill check made against their bypass skill, and if you succeed that, you'll be able to reposition all your party members. To reposition individual party members, or the extent to which you can reposition them, is based on their individual bypass skill. So these characters are pretty low level with undeveloped bypass skills, so they can both only move one tile. So I'm just going to move both of them, it doesn't really matter where, and then combat begins as usual. Now I'd like to take just a moment just to make an announcement about a Greenlight and Kickstarter campaign. Now this is probably going to happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and I suspect both campaigns will be launched simultaneously. I've set up a mailing list which you can sign up for if you'd like to get, and if you'd like me to send you an email when the campaigns go live. And to explain a little more about the Kickstarter, basically I've been covering the costs of development for the last 18 months, which I've been working on this full time for 18 months, and that is, that includes things like, just my own expenses, like kind of basic things like just food, bills, rent, that sort of thing, and also any work I've had to get someone else to do in the game that I couldn't do myself. And basically what I'm hoping to achieve with the Kickstarter, I'm actually going to be just asking for a relatively small amount of money. And what I want to do is I'd hope to get a little help with the additional costs that I'm going to have before in terms of finishing the game. I'm going to need more artwork, I'm going to need more voice acting, and a number of other things. And I'd also like to continue working on the game full time until it's complete. Now it's difficult to tell when it is complete, or when it'll be complete, because it'll depend how much I try to do with the game. But effectively I'm looking at really just the minimal amount to keep myself going for the period until I can complete the game. So there'll be no sort of fur coats or anything here. It's just going to be the absolute basics. And basically, as an independent game developer with relatively small amounts of funding, I've learned how to basically get an awful lot of quality and content out of a relatively small amount of money. This is just out of I suppose out of necessity. It kind of forces you to look for better ways to do things and better ways to get more value for money when you're working on games. So I think that with a relatively small amount of funding, I think I can make a very big difference to the game. I can expand the content with more maps, perks, characters, weapons. I can improve the level of polish in the game, and I have a lot of ideas with regards to kind of features, often smaller features, which I could add to the game, which I feel would improve it. In particular, I'd like to have an interaction and sort of a certain amount of dialogue between you and the other characters who you meet, the other vigilantes, because I think this could sort of add. I think it could add something to the game, because these are kind of going to be difficult people to deal with. Some of them are kind of experiencing past trauma. So they're not out basically doing this for no reason. There's something driving them to do this, and they're going to be volatile for that reason. So I think an interaction and dialogue system would be one of the things I would like to add. But to move on, I will just go back to the the last save, and I'll go to the main menu, or the first level, to show you the rest of the features. Also with the Greenlight, it's not as hard as it used to be, but I don't think it's going to be particularly easy either, because I'm just not a very well-known game developer. So if you could consider signing up, even if you just like to give me a vote, it would kind of be very reassuring for me, because I think it's sort of one of those things you kind of worry about. Am I going to be stuck on green light for 6 months, or that sort of thing? But to move on and show you the rest of the first alpha. So I'm going to attempt a repositioning here. It failed. In this case, it actually would have been useful, because the baseball bat here costs 5 AP, and I've just expended 3 AP to move, so I'll use the claw hammer. Now, these are the 2 new weapons belonging to the blunt weapon class, which I've just added. And blunt weapons are do very good damage, not so good on the critical side. Okay, so maybe I'll get to try the baseball bat now. And they're dodging again. Another thing that I've added this time is I have increased the animation speeds, generally by 20 to 40%, depending on the individual animation and what kind of worked okay. I've also increased or decreased the amount of time that kind of just felt like it hurt there, between the AI characters' turns. And the overall goal here is to improve the pacing of the game. Not so much of an issue on small levels like this, but for a level where you've perhaps 10 enemies and 4 player characters, it's it will significantly shorten. I'd expect by 20 to 30% the duration of a turn. And you might also notice this bar is going down. You notice it's just gone down there. That's item deterioration, which has also been added in this update. So this means that as you use items, they lose condition, and if the condition gets too low, there'll be certain penalties. I think this is kind of good for the feel of the game. It's not going to be kind of like a huge thing to maintain these. You just click on a button to repair them, and it takes some time, and you can improve your crafting skill. But I think it's kind of good for the feel where you're kind of you're sort of out in the street fighting criminals as a vigilante, and then in your spare time you're kind of stuff like patching up your armor, cleaning up your weapons so they don't jam and things like that. And that can happen. Now, if your ranged weapon gets below a certain level, it can possibly jam. If a melee weapon hits 0, it's no longer usable, and if armor, the condition of armor goes down too low, it will only protect you from a limited amount of damage. So I'm going to go back to the home base now, and I'll show you how to repair. Just this button here, and that repairs, and it also increases my crafting skill. And the last thing content wise I'd like to cover is 3 new perks. And the first perk is Precise Strike. It's for bladed weapons. Now at this point I'm trying to differentiate between unarmed, bladed and blunt, so there will be kind of tiers of perks which are available to make your character more proficient, and to basically make a decision as to which one of these melee item classes your character will use. So there's going to be multiple tiers for each of them. Precise Strike basically increases the critical chance of a hit by 3% with a bladed weapon. Heavy Swing increases the damage by plus 6%, and that's on all attacks made with blunt weapons. And Read the Label is the last one. This basically gives you a flat bonus to healing of 10%. Now the unarmed is already in for this. There's a 5% chance of not expending AP when making an unarmed attack. So those are likely the first tier of the melee perks. I think the next tier is going to add status effects. I might be able to add this in Alpha 7. I'll just see how everything's going. It should happen in the next update or 2 anyway. I also fixed a couple of bugs, thanks to the Let's Player Vlodril, who's covering pretty much all of the alpha releases of Vigilantes. He turned up these bugs in a playthrough. I always watch his playthroughs because they are he gives a lot of very good insight into kind of issues with the games or things that could potentially be done better. But in this occasion he turned up a couple of bugs, and one of them was a reload bug where you were being charged twice as much AP for reloading. And I fixed this bug, and he also turned up a bug with the reachable tile display was not showing the right tiles. It was much bigger than it should have been. So I've also fixed that. So thank you, Vladril, for for making videos of the game and for turning up those bugs. I appreciate it. And that's pretty much all for this video. I'll leave a link for the mailing list in case you'd like to sign up for it. And I've already started work on Alpha 7, so I'll keep you posted on that in the forums. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.